All right, and welcome back, everybody. We have another amazing guest today. He is esports and gaming entrepreneur and investor, host of the super popular Pandanomics podcast, and just a super cool guy in general. David Chen is with us today. David, how are you?
Bob, thanks for having me. Excited to be part of this market knowledge. Very humbled by the things you said, so thank you very much.
Well, there's so much more to say really about you, but I just want to I had to keep it a little short there because your story, and this is what I want to get into first. I do want to talk about esports and gaming and your podcast specifically, but your story is so interesting that I think it'd be great to hear a little bit about that and for people to understand you a little bit because you grew up in Colorado, I believe, and your parents brought you over from Taiwan when you were very young. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, it was an interesting journey. I was in Taiwan until I was about 2. My grandparents left China to go to Taiwan, half the family still in China. And then about the 80s, my parents, in the 70s, 80s, my parents were in Austria just trying to find a better life in Germany. Mm-hmm. And then they went back to Taipei, and then about 82 was when they brought me back over to this great country in the U.S. Spent my first portion of my life till I was 10 in Colorado, and then moved down to El Paso, Texas, and basically kind of grew my business and all the things I did in El Paso. But, it was a life of homelessness. We were homeless for a while. We had to eat bugs. We had to assimilate the culture, to learn languages, really kind of understand, that this really is the American dream. And it was the greatest opportunity that we ever had, and really kind of be part of, something greater and better. And the amazing part about the story is, my parents could barely speak English. There are 2 pivotal moments in my life that I think really defined me. One was I'd have been in 3rd or 4th grade. I don't remember this, but my mom will swear up and down this is a true story. I made honor roll. They did not understand what the word honor roll meant. And I'm talking about Google. There's no Google Translate. You can do it on your phone.
Right.
He says, as a little boy, I had ended up crumbling up the honor roll paper, threw it away. And she found it later on. And she found out later on as I did good in school. But it kind of affected me. I didn't do great in school after that, which is kind of an interesting story there. Yeah. And the second time was when I was 15. I didn't have my first home until we were 15. And so thinking that sleeping, on the floor or getting, beds from apartment complexes that were considered, poor, or our first kitchen table was a cardboard box with a drape. Those are the things I learned that then allowed me to kind of work around the process and kind of get to where I've gotten. And it's just kind of a beautiful journey here.
Well, in the conversations that we've had and the podcast that I've listened to and just listened to you speak, I get this real feeling of gratitude and just, this happiness and lust for life. Is that what that stems from, is going back to where you were?
I mean, happiness, lust for life, and good perspective, things like that. It's not always, it's what you want to be. You remind yourself when things are going really tough. We just came back to this giant pandemic after 2 years. Markets hit. A lot of people made it. Some people didn't do it, But for me, it was more of just realizing the path. I think when I did that path and I went from there, the other amazing part is I went to college. And when I went to college, I didn't finish. And it was so horrible because I was 6 years in college. And as an Asian kid, you're 6 years, you should have a PhD. I didn't have a dummy D. Like, I was sitting there as a junior, 6 years into it, and I couldn't find my place. And I think that's a common misconception of life. Like, I don't care if you're 41 like me, 18 in college, or 70, you always have to find your place. And you have to be happy with the place that you're at. And a lot of us live on the path and the things that happen, and we blame circumstances. I just didn't have that opportunity to do so. It was either you did it or you were going to die. You either did it or you're going to remain homeless. You either did it or no one cared. And it was a do or die mentality for us. And so, like most young people, especially young men, I followed the wrong path. I followed the path of TV, movies, glam, women, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I realized very, very quickly, not until while I'm in my 30s, that that wasn't the life I wanted. I always tell people, if you can't look at your grandma on Sunday, you probably should have done it on a Saturday. That's my general rule in life now. And then it became a gratefulness. And it wasn't until you fail a couple times that you start realizing humility and helping people and try to do the right things in life. Although you don't always get it that way, but you don't define karma, right? Karma doesn't tell you, like, you don't do something good and it just happens. It just kind of happens the way it does. That's what I believe in. That's kind of where the life comes out. And now my message is to tell anybody, no matter what my circumstances were, you can still try to make it and help people. And even if you change one life, you've done what you had to do.
Yeah, right. And so then you're in college. Then you wind up at Deloitte. So you're at one of the big major league consulting firms. And I think you're there for a while, and things are really going great. And you can tell us a little bit more about that. But you transition at somewhere along the road there into I think more of what you're really interested in, which is some of the venture capital and some of the investments that you got in there later.
It was an interesting journey. I mean, at that point, I'd been 6 years. My sister had skipped a year. She was a smart kid. I was the kid. It came on one thing. I was just lazy. And I didn't understand. And as a young man at that time, I was too ashamed to say, what's the syllabus? Because there wasn't Google at the time, right? There wasn't just going from there. I didn't know. And when you see all your friends doing bigger and better, it becomes an ego thing. And for me, ego's not your amigo. Ego's a real reason why you have all the problems in life. Because when you get the thing you wanted 20 years ago, now you're like, I don't want it anymore because of my ego, right? This is where the real issues happen. And that impact in my life was such a definer, because I had to leave school because my parents could only afford one. They both had a heart attack that year. I go back to El Paso. That's why I went back. Went and ran the restaurants just to keep our home. This is the same home my parents traveled worlds and countries went to come in. And I pissed it away because college didn't fail me. I failed college. The experience of college, you see a lot of entrepreneurs say it, everyone has their own story. But for me, had I just did my job, it would have been great. Now I laugh at the fact that I could turn in a homework assignment. I got these PowerPoint presentations that have to be done to the boardrooms, and they don't care about their timing at all, right? There's no, hey, teacher, can you change it? This stuff is due. Right. And what was the most important part of that aspect was the journey then. And the journey then was, I worked for 3 years in my parents' restaurant as a nobody. I just wanted to save our home. My sister go to college. But all my friends at 2025 were getting jobs at Raytheon, buying new X5s, making $100,000 a year, buying $1 million homes. And I'm living with my parents till 25 with no income, trying to make it work. But when you talk about making the best of scenario, the one thing I was always nice to people. And so one day, Manny Faso Gallardo, who was the managing partner of Deloitte, had a division that he was coming up, and he recognized the value of Chinese business in the Americas region. And because I could speak Chinese, Spanish, and English in multiple languages, which is 80% of the world's languages, I found my niche. And the niche is what you're going to do differently from everyone in the realtor section, the marketing section, something as great as market knowledge that you have done and put together, put you separated. I had done that, and I realized that I could bring an international business back and forth. So in 7 years, I became the youngest managing partner in our firm, led a division that was very, very successful, spoke in front of presidents, delegates, governments, probably set up anywhere from 380 companies, from anything from ICBC Bank to Lenovo to Sinopec Oil and Gas to different parts of real estate, and did a little bit of everything. But I focused on my niche, which was Asian business and understanding that culture. And part of 7 years, didn't finish college, freaked out a lot of people when that had happened. The response back was, well, it didn't matter when I was bringing the money and we had 80% of the market firm. Why does it matter now? And so that was kind of a real defining one for me. I spent 10 years at Deloitte, great place to learn my strategy, make connections, grip my credibility. Really, and in my 20s, where I think a lot of people make mistakes are, they want to make money, go, because they're on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's not how it works, because you're still 20. I'm not going to take advice from someone who's 20 years old, financial advisor, unless it's Mark Zuckerberg. You're not getting it. I'm not going to do it, right? But there's a great time to grow and learn and follow the right people. And I was very fortunate to do that. And so I went into Deloitte, but here's the crazy part of the story. I was there for the first 6 months. And because I did not understand how structure and infrastructure worked, I kept asking for training. I didn't get it. I get fired in 6 months. And I get fired because I was a new guy on block. For those people out there who are like, talk about office politics or things like that, you have to be liked. It's just what it comes to. Be liked. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be an ass kisser, but don't be an ass kicker. Like, just be nice to people. And because of that, I went back, and 2 months of just crying, depression. I'm 25, didn't finish school, 6 months at Deloitte. Who am I? What is this? This is the one I thought I was going to do out of high school. This is what I thought I was going to leave college. so totally and utterly lost. An epiphany happened. Go back and beg for your job. So I did. And I asked the guy named Antonio Guerra, the managing partner there, I said, listen, if I take a 60% pay cut, will you bring me back in the firm? And I did a value-added proposition, which means I wanted you to pay me $2,000 a month for 3 months. But if I can hit your $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 sales goal, then you keep me on for the rest of the year. He agreed. But what I did differently this time was, instead of relying and blaming, I just literally Googled everything. I became an expert in things in taxes and audits. And I looked at it from a customer's perspective, which was, if you're a foreigner coming to this country and don't speak Spanish, how do I make comparisons between Spanish and English and simplified traditional Chinese, and let you look at it so you understand in your country what the differences were. I made myself that position at Deloitte. Like, it wasn't even like it was there. I literally made myself that position because I found my niche that was different. No one else in the firm could speak those languages or have those relationships that I really have. And then within that 6 months, it became national. And 7 years later, I made partners. So for all those people out there who don't think they're doing it, or they're stuck in a dead end, whatever, it really kind of comes down to you, a little bit of luck, but a lot of identifying what's going to make you different within your company. And that's how I did it.
That's even more amazing than I thought it was. Now, so things are going so well, you've created that niche, and then you leave. So how did you make that decision to go ahead and go out on your own? And, can be a really, really hard decision. It takes a lot of guts to get over the hump there.
The hardest thing, I think, for human beings is fear, and it's change. And I get it. Look, you work so hard to establish, and you think that you might have the ability to, but your ability to sell and network and to grow people, that's your ability. Those are your skill sets. Those are things that you develop years and years and years to grow the reputation. And although you might be in one industry that you're at, if you're not happy, what does it matter, right? Because the false sense of life is we're going to live to 100. Says who? In fact, only 1% of the world lives to 100. That means we don't know when we're going to go from there. But why not be happy while you're doing it and make money and impact and change lives? And so I left in 15, circumstantially, really just because, unfortunately, the violence in Mexico was really rough for me at that point. People who don't know this, I'm 6'5", 270. I'm not hard to miss, especially in Mexico. I'm sitting in front of papers, and I'm with the president of China and going from there. But I'll tell you what, it was a scary journey, and it's not easy. And there are days where you wonder if this is what you want to do, but I've already done it for 10 years at Deloitte. If I need to go back, Lord willing, a big firm will bring me up. I'm going to consulting, but I get to do what makes me happy. And to me, that's what life should be about.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And now you're big into the esports industry, gaming. Is that what you love? Is that your passion? And do you play games? Are you?
Yeah. I mean, I game. I think we all game at one point. Everyone is a closet gamer in their older age, but everyone played Pac-Man or Street Fighter, or they're playing Candy Crush, or they're playing some form of gaming. And what drew me to gaming, from Deloitte, I was in emerging industries. I was in the crypto space. I was in the cannabis space. I'm currently in the real estate space. And let me tell you something, emerging markets are great, but you and I both know in emerging markets, there's a lot of ups and there's a lot of downs, and there's a lot of governmental bodies that have to guarantee the regulations of things. That's where a lot of things got harder, because from Deloitte's standpoint, everything was always regulations and doing things the right way. So you get in these emerging markets, you get to develop and think of it, but my path from Deloitte allowed me to be successful in those industries because I followed that exact path. I never took a cut. I never said, well, the government might not know that. I just did the way I had to do it, right? And that's where the value started coming in. And when esports came around, man, not only am I a gamer, but the values and the things that esports is doing, the fact that I can touch 1 billion people's lives and within a year of time all around the world, as opposed to what it might have taken a traditional route, and help the young kids know that doesn't matter what you look like, where you're from, if you're 10, you're 20 or 30, if you're have an unfortunate handicap, if you are Asian, if you are white, if you are gay, if you are straight, in the gaming world, you're just you. Either good or you're not good.
Yeah.
And to be able to shape young people's lives and still say I was an ex-Deloitte managing partner, I think that's my purpose.
And it seems to be such a big industry. I'm watching it from outside, so I'm not near as deep as what you see. But it seems to be growing so fast, and like you said, the demographics are so good. It has such a big reach, and there seems also to be all these tentacles aside of it, where it's real estate, it's finance, it's media. I mean, how big is it?
So I'm going to give you a scary statistic. I'm going to give you a couple. One. When I joined my first talk, and if any of your kids or any of this game know this, I'm one of the shareholders at FaceClan. And FaceClan is an esports team. Now people are like, well, why do people watch video games? Why do you watch golf? Yeah. Simple answer, right? Why do you watch TV? You're not acting. People are watching it for entertainment. People are watching it to learn. You're learning how, Tiger's hitting that swing, just like you're going to learn how someone is shooting that shot. But here was a difference. In 2017, FaZe had 10 billion viewers and 330 million subscribers. If I take the quality of value that a Amazon or that a Facebook has, we're not talking about EBITDA, right? It's got quality of value. Where else do you have 10 billion viewers, 330 million subscribers in the world? Nobody. Yeah. Number two, we did Super Bowl commercial with my good friend Gary Vee and Steve Babcock. And we did a Planners Peanuts commercial. And we had A-Rod and Charlie Sheen. They had Kai Green there. In the background for 1 second was a guy named FaZe at Apex and Adapt. Apex, not 1 second, had more engagement than A-Rod and Charlie Sheen combined. What does that tell you? You talk about, what is your conversion rate? Real estate, any business, it's all sales oriented where you have to do that. Everything at the end of the day is sales, right? You have to sell a product for someone to buy. I don't care if you're a dentist, it's the same thing. What ended up happening was there was more engagement for 1 second and a light clicked off. You're telling me I have an engagement of that high and I'm going to have a customer base that goes from 5 years old now playing Roblox to Minecraft to Fortnite, all the way to competitive gamers and athletes, and they're going to stick with me if I stick in gaming. That's where the value was. For a brand, whether it's my private equity firm, whether it's real estate, whether it's PR, hell, whether it's restaurants. Every industry has a new branch that's gaming specific. We see in the cannabis industry, there's cannabis foods. We see in the crypto industry, there's exchanges, right? There's different things that come out of the industry. The thing is, the industry all needs the same thing. Every industry needs real estate. Every industry needs sales. Every industry needs PR. Every industry needs accounting. That's what gaming was. And the numbers were so phenomenal, Bob. And my reach was so big, it's easier than sports. Like, if I want to play in the NBA and play basketball, and I want to play someone in China, I can fly to China, rest a week or two, go from there. There is a real world issue. But if I want to play someone in China tomorrow, I just hop online and I play them. It's what we've learned in this current market is it's time management efficiency. You can do Zooms like we're doing now. You can meet in person. Nothing is as great as meeting someone in person. That's why they're live events in gaming. Yeah. But it's the access to these people. It's your network. It's the next 30 years. The same way you look at Marvel when we were younger or comics. It was a joke, right? It was like you're kind of a nerd if you're watching it, but we all like Superman. We all like Wonder Woman. We all like Captain America. And now those movies are the most grossed films of all time because they built that customer base from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, passing it down to their kids. That's what gaming is.
Yeah. Well, I completely get it. I've got a 15-year-old son who is a gamer, and he also plays football, and he gets great grades, and he's doing great all over the place. But so I get what you're talking about, and one of the things that I noticed with him and some of the other kids is during the pandemic time, that year that we're still in, there seemed to be a real growth there for the whole industry.
Yeah, let me tell you something crazy about this. There are a couple of key points I want to hit. First, let's talk about financial, right? Before the pandemic happened, Newzoo, which is the leader in statistics of esports, basically sat there and said the following. They had estimated 2023, before the pandemic, it was going to be a $3 billion industry. Right now, it's estimated to be a $200 billion industry by 2023, up $197 billion. You can find that on Newzoo. Another thing is FaZe-Clan, one of the teams I invested in 2017, $120 million valuation. By 2020, Forbes independently evaluated the company at $305 million. Forbes evaluated it, right? $197 billion, and people still are working part of this. That's like saying I didn't want to be part of the internet in the 90s, right? Now you're regretting it. That's like saying e-commerce isn't going to work in the 2000s. Now you're regretting it. That's like saying there's no way Zillow will work or LegalZoom will work. There's no way Uber will work. These are trends that are coming whether you like it or not. And there's two types of people. Either you do it and you keep arguing it's not going to work, or you don't do it, you don't keep arguing, or you do it and you start working with it. And we've just been fortunate enough to have been blessed with working with people like yourself and other people that are starting to understand the space because it's the access and ability. Those two are the crazy numbers. And you talk about kids, it lowers suicide and depression rates. If you think your kids aren't going out and running, you're out of touch. Your kids are playing games, talking to their friends about life and what's going on. They're feeling a sense of worth. And wouldn't you, if your child currently doesn't have shot, whether you believe it or not, at least whether the risk is out there, they can play video games and talk to their friends and still feel part of something as opposed to not. It helps with suicide, teen depression. Those are depression in general. Those are the things that help because you feel included in that community. And that's the value of esports to me at the end of the day.
What I've noticed is the people that you're talking to as well. It's the athletes, it's the entertainers, it's the Gary V's of the world, who are all big gamers as well. Big business, very highly successful people, and they're really into what you're doing.
Yeah, I've been lucky. I mean, we've had some great things at NACL, playnacl.com if you want to look at it. It's a collegiate league, but a collegiate league is much more. We have a league in Latin America. We're growing one in Asia. We're partners with the English Premier League, Wolverhampton Wanderers. We've done events with NASCAR. We are partners with Consensus and Ethereum. We did the very first crypto blockchain payout system together for collegiate esports. We did clothing with Mark Cuban, 3 commas, in Arkansas State. So you notice I just did 4 different industries, all coming from esports. The other crazy thing is David Meltzer, who introduced us. He's one of my partners. Lawrence Chia, the former CEO of Deloitte China, who now runs a $10 billion company, is an investor and a partner. Cena Esports, international business partner. Let's talk about athletes. Rick Barry, Brian Urlacher, right? Jeremy Roenick, older school guys. Aaron Jones, current guys. These are the guys that really matter. Cinta de Oro, who used to be in WWE. Paige Hathaway, Flex Lewis, 7-time Mr. Olympia. Uriah Hall, which we're about to make an announcement, joining us from, he's an MMA fighter. Every industry and age group is understanding the value of esports because it's the one thing that you can't buy. FaceTime and access nonstop to people.
So where are we headed? You talked about the NACL, the collegiate league. Where is esports headed from here on out?
I think in any other market, you're going to have a lot of, if you talk about a traditional standpoint, you're going to have a lot of companies that are overvaluated. And if you're looking for traditional EBITDA, it's not going to be what it is. But if you look at it from quality evaluation, like you did at Amazon for 17 years of losing, or Facebook that had a giant IPO of 832 million people, what did you care about? It was access to the people.
Yeah.
You can't look at it from trust. You look from a branding aspect for a brand. You're looking from an aspect of sponsorships. You're going to look at it from an aspect to build your community because these 10-year-olds, this isn't like me and you where we're Cowboy fans because of our dads or Yankees fans because of our dads. They don't care. Right? The allegiance to the cities aren't necessarily there anymore. The allegiance are to the players in the game itself. And that's where the value comes in. And where I see it is, I see it, growing bigger and better. We're working with real estate companies in real estate with esports. I'm teaching at several universities. SMU is one of them, Southern Methodist University. The 3rd best sports management program. I am teaching esports tournament because that is the future. There are all these other industries that are coming out. Clothing, we're working with our partners with fashion innovation. There's so many fields. I feel like if you don't get on and train with an expert and really understand it and identify how your company will be part of it, you will be nothing towards IBM or Kodak is, but remember in the 80s, 78% of the Fortune 500 companies no longer exist there.
Yeah. I'm in the real estate business, as you know, and looking at the office market, we're starting to see companies go back to the office. Some are taking a different route where there's still a lot of work from home happening, and we'll see what happens over the next couple of years on the transition from going back to the office and some of the strategies that worked and didn't work. In the gaming industry, are you seeing more of the gatherings and going back into the office, going back into retail settings?
It's crazy. I own real estate. We have a co-working space in El Paso, 24,000 square feet, called Downtown Spaces. And it's all co-working space, right? Anyone here in the real estate industry was like, I cannot believe I didn't think of the co-working thing when WeWork happened. Everyone's like, what? And,
Yeah.
But what made it different from a Regis was it was cool and hip. It wasn't just my dad's place.
Right.
Whether you admit it or not, everybody wants to be cool, or everybody wants to be, it's not for you, at least your kids, right? I mean, that's the reality of it. You want to be the cool person. You want to be relatable. You want to be understandable. That's what WeWork did well. Of course, what they didn't do well is a whole different story. What we've realized in our spaces is we started adding gaming facilities into the different real estate properties that we have, and it helps. Let's talk about it. If you are an apartment person, you have apartments and you have complex condos, they're called amenities, right? We had pools 20 years ago, 30 years ago. What do you mean I'm going to put a pool? We had tennis courts, we put basketball courts. Then we started putting gyms in there. Why? Because you wanted the people to have a lifestyle that was there. Then it was high-speed internet. You don't think that's happening in gaming? Several major companies, we're working with, we're putting lounges because it's an amenity for people to go there. If I'm a content creator, we're all content creators. If you have a social media content creator, if you have a podcast creator, because you're trying to bring business and knowledge into your brand, that's what they're doing in the gaming lounges. They're not just gaming, they're also creating content for gaming at your space. That is branding and value and community. And that's the first part. If you're a giant space that has 10,000 square feet and trying to figure out how to convert it, just like the Staples Center, they have off season. The Lakers don't play all year, unfortunately, right? So what ends up happening is you have to rent it out. You don't want to rent it out to gaming lounges. Look at the statistics at Staples Center, the Fortnite Championships. They sold out in 2 hours. I was in Shanghai, China at the Mercedes Dome, 35,000 people. They were doing a Dota 2 World Championship. That thing sold out in an hour and a half. And I'm telling you, I have never seen anything so massive in life. I've been to Super Bowl. I've been to the finals. I have never seen anything like that in my life. And it's people from all around the world, right? Even though I'm 6'5", playing basketball, I'm not 6'10". I'm not playing against someone that's going to win. But in gaming, my skill set was there. So for a lot of those companies trying to realize how they can convert and going from there. Some casinos we're working with, and hotel properties, they're like, well, we want to bring in everything else. You're bringing your money in through concessions and food, right, and time, right? So what's happening is if you have these big championships and the average tournament runs 8 hours, which is what ours does. The NBA Finals doesn't go 8 hours. Super Bowl doesn't go 8 hours, right? 8 hours is our average tournament time. And imagine during that time, people are eating, drinking, looking at your brand for 8 hours. I mean, it's unbelievable. Half of you have to pull your kids off right now the phone to even listen to what you're talking about, right? They're still jamming out on YouTube while they're playing Fortnite. But why do they know those brands? Because of that reason. How come you know those brands? Because your kids are telling you that reason.
Absolutely.
Then you're like, oh my God, that's where they're going in. That's the phenomenal part of real estate, is to really put those things, lounges and restaurants we're working with, setting them up. There's certain ways to do it that are really, really incredible. And I'm very excited that we're part of that industry and really kind of growing and making that different. You have to be different. Hotels have to be different. Who thought of ever putting nightclubs in hotels?
Right.
Now, why do we go to Vegas? Why do they all have lounges? Why do they have bars? I don't care if you're in the Golden Nugget, sitting there in New Orleans and Louisiana, or you're out there in Vegas, or you're in Macau. They have to have lounges. Gaming lounges make sense because if you're a big whale and you want to go gamble, but your kid is bored out of his mind, like Circus was for us as kids, what our parents do?
Yeah.
When you go circus, right? They go gamble, they switch mom and dad, switch off, and go from there. What do you think gaming is? It's entertainment and value. But to bring a brand to them, that's really where the value comes down.
Yeah. Well, I know we're running out of time, but I quickly want to talk about your podcast as well, because it's super interesting. Tell me a little bit more about it. You've got, athletes and gamers and influencers. I think you're on over 70 shows now. How's it going?
For a lot of people out there, I want to point this out. I had no idea how to do a podcast, right?
Me neither.
Right? You hear the market saturated. What I did was I was very lucky. I had friends, my fiance, they sort of like, you got to tell your story. I'm like, who wants to listen to my story? And I've only been doing this for 2.5 years. The motivational speaking, the coaching, consulting, the business consulting, life consulting. But what I realized was when I hit a pinnacle at Deloitte, what was the Lamborghini and the Porsche use? What was the usefulness if I wasn't around my family? I was so unhappy.
Yeah.
Right. And my friends weren't really my friends. and I owned a bunch of nightclubs and bars. I was a partner at Deloitte, but I was probably the least happiest of my life. An epiphany hit. There's only two ways to happen, right? Either it happens and you're really on your down, or you start realizing you have to make a change. And I wanted to have a legacy where when I have children or my nieces, my nephews would be proud of. And so when we did the podcast, the idea was just to be very honest. It was to tell you my story, and it was truthful. The first 14 episodes about my life. The last couple ones, you have guys like Steve Babcock, greatest CMO in the world. I did Dwayne Budweiser commercial, right? Dwayne Wade Budweiser, Ryan Urlacher. We have Paige Hathaway who will be on the next episode. Behavioral scientists like John Levy, venture capitalists all around the world. Just a huge mix of people that I knew to highlight their future. There were some commonalities. They were all nice. They're all genuine. They all cared to help human beings. Those were aspects that I started realizing, David, if you have 50 people on this and Hall of Famers from every walk of life, and these are the same core components that made you their partner, and they became your partner, then those are the components that you need to have the rest of your life and spread that message out. And we got lucky enough to be New York Weekly's #1 podcast, which is called Poundonomics. And we'll be very soon, we'll be on Reach TV, where we'll be in 124 airports. And we'll talk about my podcast about 9-8 minutes. So if anyone wants to join in, you're more than welcome to, but we're just honest. We don't talk about negative things. I don't paint a picture of negativity. The world does that enough. I just want to talk about good things and you and good people. And we've been fortunate enough to have that podcast.
Well, it's really just an amazing platform that we have here, because I mean, even this show that I've been doing, I mean, what a great opportunity for me to have people on the show and just pick your brain for 30 minutes. I mean, it's fantastic. And that's what I love to do, is when I'm listening to your podcast from your guests, is I'm taking just little nuggets here and there that I try and infuse into my life every day. So it's fantastic.
I really appreciate that. And I think that's where the value comes in, right? It's like anyone can do it. Like the day I was about to quit, I was like, I did 14 episodes. It's a lot of time. I'm really tired.
Yeah.
I got an award for being number 1 podcast in White Weekly. I wasn't enamored with the numbers and the viewership and the people listening yet, because that's what we focus on. That's how we convert things. But the amount of people who are just afraid to like or comment, or lives that you impact and touch, or beyond way more in any measurement I could ever know. And when that thing came down for New York Weekly, I was like, we got to keep making this work. I just started having one sponsor this whole entire show. It's #1 show. You don't have to have a bunch of sponsors. But if your message is out there and it's clear, at the end of the day, I don't care if you're in real estate, if you're from Deloitte, or you're in esports, whatever you do.
Yeah.
People work with you, the individual, for what you represent, who you are. And your podcast is a perfect platform to tell people who you really are and give yourself a voice and help others give a voice when they don't have a chance to. So I commend you on this awesome podcast, my friend. Anyone else that needs any advice, please feel free to hit me up. I'm more than happy to talk to them.
David, thanks so much for being here, man. Really, really appreciate it, and continued success. And I'm looking forward to working with you on these projects.
Thank you. And I'm looking forward to working with you and your great group, Bob, and anyone else. If you guys looking for me, it's David Chen Panda on Twitter and Instagram. On LinkedIn, it's David Chen. I'd be happy to talk to anyone there. And Bob, as usual, thank you for your time. And I'm honored to be a guest on your show.
Appreciate it, David.
Thanks, my friend.